Good morning. My name is Robert Cockfield from Get Up Community Center and Get Up Ministries. And this morning, I would like to talk to you about hearing God and doing God's will and way. Hearing God, doing God's will and way. I want to start with Numbers, the 22nd chapter, and we're going to talk about how that on many occasions, what we find ourselves doing is we'll do things for people and not waiting on God to give us instructions. And many of us are guilty of that. We'll just do it just because we can do it. We have the skill sets and the tools and technology and a lot of things that are as assets in our life. And because we have those things, we feel as if because someone asks us to do something for them or we find ourselves in a predicament or situation where someone needs us to facilitate them, instead of waiting on God to give us those instructions, what we do, we will go ahead and just do it just because. And before I start off, I want to be transparent and translucent with you about and give you an example about I've done it before. And an example is over several decades ago, almost 25 years ago, I decided that I want to start a community center and church. Why? Now, I grew up in an environment where there was a community center and a church, and I grew up in church all my life. I was a musician, called to preach when I was 8, and I had that desire. I wanted to do that. Like it just was something that I just wanted to do because it felt good. Like I just felt like I could do things for people in the community, and because I was a recipient of those things that I seen done in the community. For instance, in the community center that I grew up in, it's called Commonplace in Peoria, Illinois, where they fed us and we got to commune and fellowship with the seniors within the community. We hung out with other fellow young people in the community, him or her, and we had fun. They took us on trips and we got to go to church together and eat together. And it was nice. It was beautiful in an environment that was very toxic, a lot of crime. And there was a lot of sexual immorality and alcoholism and drug use and prostitution, that kind of stuff. So it was a safe haven. Because that environment was beautiful for me, I decided when I became an adult, when I became grown, as they say, I was going to do that. Like that was going to be my contribution to society. So I was in the military, and then I finally got out after doing 20 years, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do what I seen and what I know I was a part of. Like, I want to do that. Like that very thing that I was a recipient of, I felt because it was a good work, that's what I'm going to do. So here's the deal. I'm going to open a community center and I'm going to start a church and then off to the races. Well, here's the thing. I ended up doing it, but here's the problem. I never consulted God. Never. And to be frank with you, here's the bigger piece. My whole entire life coming up, I went to church, but I didn't understand the church. I was just in the box. I didn't understand or know about the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I know I heard it preached, I heard it taught. I went to Sunday school, I did all, but I didn't understand it. You can hear the word of God, but do you understand it? I didn't. Here's the second thing. I got married, didn't consult God. Didn't know how. I really didn't. I just, for the likes of me, I just continued to just not understand, stop, and get to know God. So I know myself. And the Bible talks about how when we get God, we got a plan, see? But I just, it didn't resonate with me. Everything was based on that body, soul, and spirit instead of my spirit being connected to God's spirit, and then my soul and body lining up. But I didn't understand that. Here's the other thing. So I joined the military didn't ask God. I just did it because I can do that. Really, I did it because I had a scholarship opportunity. The Peabody School of Music was one of the top music conservatories, and I really was interested in jazz. Um, I wanted to go there, and because of some improprieties that I had in my life, I wasn't able to go. So I joined the military, but I never consulted God. Now, listen to what I'm saying. This is important. And my transparency and translucent conversation with you, I want you to understand the context of this passage of scripture we're going to talk about and how important this is. I then get out of the military and I decide that I'm going to open this community center and church. And I did 2 decades or more, 25, almost 30 years. And I opened 6 businesses with a few other folks, but I never consulted God. It was just because I could. I'm a highly educated individual. I had the wherewithal, the heart, the mindset. I was doing good, and all good is not good, especially when God's not in it. And I'm just riding along, and I'm having fun, I'm enjoying myself, and there were some good days and some hills to climb, as the song says. There was, I felt good about myself because for the first time in my life, in the environment I grew up in, I always found myself doing things that weren't productive when I was coming up. I was, the majority of things I did, they were not productive in the community. Now, even though I was a recipient of good things in the community, I was doing some very nefarious things coming up because that was the environment I'm in. So, in other words, I go to church and I leave church, and then now I'm in this nefarious environment, and I don't have God. I know of Him. I heard about Him. And understanding the importance of living for God is a whole nother concept. So the point is, you spend the majority of your life, 40 something years, not consulting God. And one day, when it hit me was, I was wore out. I was tired. I just, I said, God, I'm tired. Like my life seemed meaningless. And I finally decided, stop. Who are you? Who am I? Let me hit the reset button. Let me find myself coming to the understanding that I need God and not be embarrassed about that. Not worrying about what people are going to say. Because think about this. I've been preaching, teaching, running a community center, running a restaurant, running an event center, running mobile units, food, feeding people, having a seniors program, having a youth programs, doing all this stuff, right? And I never consulted God. I was marrying folks, didn't consult God. I'm just being transparent. There's a reason why I'm doing this and saying what I'm saying. You can do that and find yourself out of pocket with God. And you can gain the whole world and lose your soul. And don't get me wrong, these were some good works. They were. But were they preordained by God? That's my point. Now, the good thing is, in all of my doings, God's grace and mercy was with me. I wouldn't be standing here. I now can tell you, I don't live in shame or guilt behind what I did. I'm thankful. A lot of people got blessed behind my ignorance. But at the end of the day, I got blessed too. Now, I'm at an age, in my 50s, I hit the reset button. I said, God, you know what? I really want to hit that reset button and get it right. And here's my last thing before we get started. People will employ you if you don't deploy God. Now think about this. If I don't allow the Spirit of the Lord to lead and guide me to the truth, which should line up with the word, and God manufactured and made us and brought us to this planet with the intention of perpetuating who He is and ensuring that we do the will and way for which He carved and crafted us for. He's the potter, we're clay. So if you think about this, God already has a plan for us, and it's called purpose and intent. So we can fulfill a dash and be at the spaces and places we're supposed to occupy without wondering and wandering. That's pretty good. But when do we invoke God and ask him, why you got me here? Many of us are here. We're just here. Now, this is why I say we're here. But do we hear God? I'm here, H-E-R-E. But do I hear God, H-E-A-R? That's the difference. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about that. Like, am I doing the will and way of God? Am I hearing God? Do I know him? He knows us, but do we know him? So in Numbers 22nd chapter, then the people of Israel went to the plains of Moab, and they camped near the Jordan River across from Jericho. Balak, son of Zippor, saw everything the Israelites had done to the Amorites, and Moab was scared of so many Israelites. Truly, Moab was terrified by them. The Moabites said to the elders of Midian, these people will take everything around us like an ox eating grass. Balak, son of Zippor, was the king of Moab at this time. He sent messengers to Balaam, son of Beor, at Pethor, near the Euphrates River in his native land. Balak said, a nation has come out of Egypt that covers the land. They have camped next to me, and they are too powerful for me. So come and put a curse on them. Maybe then I can defeat them and make them leave the area. I know that if you bless someone, the blessings happen. And if you put a curse on someone, it happens. The elders of Moab and Midian went with payment in their hands when they found Balaam, and they told him what Balak had said. The 8th verse says, Balaam said to them, stay here for the night, and I will tell you what the Lord tells me. So the Moabite leaders stayed with him. God came to Balaam and asked, who are these men with you? Balaam, 10th verse, said to God, the king of Moab, Balak, son of Zippor, sent them to me with this message. A nation has come out of Egypt that covers the land. So come and put a curse on them, and maybe I can fight them and force them out of my land. But God said to Balaam, do not go with them. Don't put a curse on those people, because I have blessed them. Now I'm going to say this again, 12th verse. But God said to Balaam, do not go with them. Don't put a curse on those people, because I have blessed them. And 13th verse says, the next morning Balaam awoke and said to Balak's leaders, go back to your own country. The Lord has refused to let me go with you. And the 14th verse says, so the Moabite leaders went back to Balak and said, Balaam refused to come with us. So Balak sent other leaders this time. There were more of them, and they were more important. They went to Balaam and said, Balak, son of Zippor, says this, please don't let anything stop you from coming to me. I will pay you very well, and I will do what you say. Come and put a curse on these people for me. But Balaam answered Balak's servants, King Balak could give me his palace full of silver and gold, but I cannot disobey the Lord, my God, in anything, great or small. Now, that's the 18th verse. Let me say this again. But Balaam answered Balak's servants, King Balak could give me his palace full of silver and gold, but I cannot disobey the Lord my God in anything great or small. You stay here tonight as the other men did, and I will find out what more the Lord tells me. And the 20th verse says, that night God came to Balaam and said, these men have come to ask you to go with them. Go, but only do what I tell you. Balaam donkey speaks. Now listen to this. 21st verse. Balaam got up the next morning and put a saddle on his donkey. Then he went with the Moabite leaders. 22nd verse says, but God became angry because Balaam went. So the angel of the Lord stood in a road to stop Balaam. Balaam was riding his donkey, and he had 2 servants with him. 23rd verse says, when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a sword in his hand, the donkey left the road and went into the field. Balaam hit the donkey to force her back on the road. Later, the angel of the Lord stood on a narrow path between 2 vineyards with walls on both sides. And the 25th verse says, again, the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, and she walked across to one wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it. So he hit her again. The angel of the Lord went ahead again and stood at a narrow place, too narrow to turn left or right. The 27th verse says, when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. This made him so angry that he hit her with his stick. Then the Lord made the donkey talk, and she said to Balaam, what have I done to make you hit me 3 times? Balaam answered the donkey, you have made me look foolish. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I will kill you right now. But the donkey said to Balaam, I am your very own donkey, which you have ridden for years. Have I ever done this to you before? No, Balaam said. 31st verse says, then the Lord let Balaam see the angel of the Lord, who was standing in the road with his sword drawn. Then Balaam bowed face down on the ground. The 32nd verse says, the angel of the Lord asked Balaam, why have you hit your donkey 3 times? I have stood here to stop you, because what you are doing is wrong. Now listen to this. The angel of the Lord asked Balaam. Now this donkey who's been faithful to Balaam, they had a relationship. But the angel of the Lord said, why have you hit your donkey 3 times? I have stood here to stop you, because what you are doing is wrong. The donkey saw me and turned away from me 3 times. If she had not turned away, I would have killed you by now, but I would have let her live. Then Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned. I did not know you were standing in the road to stop me. And if I am wrong, I will go back. The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, go with these men, but say only what I tell you. So Balaam went with Balak's leaders. Excuse me. When Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at Ar in Moab, which was beside the Arnon, at the edge of his country. Balak said to Balaam, I have asked you before to come quickly. Why didn't you come to me? I am able to reward you well. But Balaam answered, I have come to you now, but I can't say just anything. I can only say what God tells me to say. Then Balaam went with Balak to Kiriath Huzoth. Balak offered cattle and sheep as a sacrifice and gave some meat to Balaam and leaders with him. The last verse says, 41, the next morning Balak took Balaam to Baal. From there, he could see the edge of the Israelite camp. Now, I read the entirety of that for a reason, and I want to hit some points. And I want you to really think about what I'm saying. Now, what the prelude of what I explained to you about my life really lines up with this. And many of us are guilty of this, very guilty. Now, think about this. You have a leader, a secular person who doesn't subscribe to God, afraid of a blessed people, who knows if they were to engage his territory, kingdom, fight them in kingdom, as they say, that he couldn't handle them. So he invokes the likes of someone who is godly to curse the blessed people. Let's start with that. How many times have we aligned ourselves with people that we know are not for God, about God, and really don't care about nobody but themselves, and have tried to destroy the content and character or assassinate those that are of God? And they get you to be a part of that. And we signed off on that. So the first thing I'm going to say, never do that. Never allow anyone to invoke you to do nefarious things to hurt people, period. Especially the people of God. I'm guilty of that. We've done it so many times. We've talked about the church as a whole, or a certain denomination. We've talked about certain leaders. We've talked about family members or friends or coworkers, or because someone enticed you to sign off on some things that you do not have all the information about. And even if you did, does it make it right to even engage that type of activity or behavior? No, that's sabotaging. And it's wrong. And the Bible talks about how when we judge others, we judge ourselves. Even as as parents, one of my sons said this. He said, Dad, at first I idolized you. I then demonized you. and then I humanized you. Think about those three things he said to me. I idolized you because you was my dad. I demonized you because as I was growing and you were growing, and as we aged together, there were some things about you as I matured I didn't like. So I did things and employed things to sabotage you. But then he realizes that that was wrong. Like, no, we all have sinned and fell short of the glory of God. And he realizes that, he said, Dad, I'm not perfect, nor are you. So why am I sitting here demonizing you? When that revelation came, when he became a parent, he says, wow. Here's my point too. When people try to get you to sign off on stuff like that, the purpose and intent of that is really because they have some issues themselves or some unresolved things. And when you're not aligned with the Spirit of God that'll lead and guide us to truth, which should line up with the Word, and have us to do godly things, things of Christ, Spirit-led things, we will do nefarious things, and we hurt folks. The second thing I want to bring up is this. People want to entice you with things that get you to do things that you're not assigned to do. Has nothing to do with your purpose and intent. And you'll wander and get in trouble. I know for me, when I'm not aligned in the things of God or the things that I'm supposed to do, I get in trouble. How about you? I don't know how many times people entice me with titles, entitlement, goods, services, things, shiny objects, or because of some deficiencies that I have from a psychosocial perspective. Maybe I'm that type of person who has an abandonment issue, or I have an issue with as far as self-esteem, or I want everybody to like me. And maybe none of you that's listening has that problem or have had that problem, but I've had it. I still struggle with that at times. If you're not careful, people will employ you to do things that has nothing to do with your purpose and intent, and you have not consulted God, because they become your God, or those things become your God. Now, the Bible talks about this, about how that you can gain the whole world and lose yourself. This stuff don't belong to you. You can't take it with you. It's not yours. Everything belongs to God. Everything. Here's my third point. How many times have we found ourselves thinking, because of the status and stratus of folks that ask you to do things, that you have to do it without consulting God? Dangerous living, dangerous situation. I don't care who it is. If it don't line up with who God has predestined, preordained for you to line up with, don't do it. I don't care what they ask. I'd rather be right with God and in pocket with God than to be out of pocket with God. And so many times over the years, I've done that. So-and-so asked me to do this. So-and-so asked me to do that. Oh, it's, they are of great importance. Or I want to get in where I fit in. Really? Where does God fit in? Did I hear him? Talk to him? What? When we get that wrong and we don't listen to God, this is what happens. We'll find ourselves at the wrong place at the wrong time, because this is how life works. Time don't wait on none of us. And then God will allow life to carve and craft us. And then what should happen, these experiences, your testimony, you'll show up at a certain space and place at a certain time. And then you'll meet people that you're supposed to have an exchange with to ensure that they know that they need God and that God is their primary source. And that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is important, and why Jesus died. Jesus even said, I'm about my Father's business. Hear that? We got to be about his business too. But when we show up for that exchange and there's no exchange, or the exchange is unequal, somebody's given us, but we have nothing to give them, it's because we missed it. The things that we should have learned from that carving and crafting of life. That God, that's that learning about who God is and who we are. And we should be able to share those experiences. So it helps all of us sojourn or to move and navigate through life. So the sabotaging behavior becomes this. We always show up empty. We never have anything purely that fits or matches our purpose and intent to exchange with people. The enemy who come to kill, steal, and destroy. Lucifer in his previous glorified state, Satan in his present state, who come to kill, steal, and destroy, don't want you to show up with the proper things of God. So folks, get you, little g, not God. Here's this other piece. Isn't it beautiful how God will give us a multiplicity of opportunities to get it right? See, the angel of the Lord showed up. Now, here was the problem. See, Balaam knew better. See, God said, hold up. Don't do nothing until I tell you. Nothing. Just hold up. I'll tell you. But here's the problem. We get so antsy. We'll just say, wait a minute. I heard from God, but I'm waiting on the instructions. See, just because we heard from God, that's cool. But get the instructions. Get it all. Wait on God to roll it out. God don't make mistakes. We just don't wait. And we'll just move because you know what? God talked to me. But did you get all the instructions? And you know what happens? By grace and mercy, we'll do things that we know we ain't got no business doing. And then God will just still send people. He'll use tools, things, the environment, circumstances, situations to awaken us, to get us to understand. That's the Spirit of the Lord talking to us. And we ain't listening. It's to say, hey, guess what? Hold up. That's not cool. Wait a minute. Stop. I'm trying to give you a chance to get it together. This is what I want to end with. At the end of the day, what's more important? Pleasing people or pleasing God? I just ask you to think about that. Doing the will and way of God, or I find myself not in the will and I'm in the way of God doing what he needs to do. And I'm not fulfilling my purpose and intent. This is Robert Cockfield from Get Up Community Center, Get Up Ministries. I hope this will bless you. And I hope that you will find yourself willing and able to do the will and the way of God. God bless you.